SSG right off the bat.
And I didn't dislike the Thor pick in the sense that Final K didn't play it correctly, because he played it the way it should have. Found the farm, made the rotations, his presence was all over the map, but the rest of his teammates couldn't really control the objectives, is where CLG kind of faltered.
Sure. I liked the choice to not go, if your opponent isn't going to go for a traditional tank in that solo lane, you don't have to either. I thought Thor brought some control. They were just, everything had to do with that Aphrodite. Not banning it out here, but they will ban, they being CLG, will ban the Guan Yu, which I think is a big deal.
It's surprising that they banned Guan Yu as opposed to the Thoth being played by Baskin. They go to it yet again. It's such a comfort pick for Baskin, but CLG recognized that SSG would have taken that mid-mage, so it gives him that Athena, but still, a little surprised with the Hachiman selection.
Yeah.
It's just a little too early for a hunter when there's Artemis that's still available. Look for those late-game crit potentials.
You want to talk about early Sylvanas second pick? That seems a little bit out of the ordinary to see this god this early.
It's possible that CLG would have banned Guardians after, and SSG can rely on the Sylvanas for the roots, the pulls, the control with the Wrath of Terror in the jungle side. It controls so much space, and if you're not going to have Guan Yu sustain for Jeff Hilla, you might as well get those Wisps instead.
Chang'e going to be selected here by SSG, and last time CLG made the, what I will call a mistake, of not picking Odin in this spot. Instead they picked a Thor, and later on Space Station Gaming banned it here in our secondary ban phase. Here, I think CLG make the fix, they errata their decision that they made in game number 1. They pick Odin in this spot, which will do a great job of dealing with Chang'e, Sylvanas, and Thoth, all of which have already been picked.
I think Aquarius, though, against Trifecta, he played the Chang'e against an Odin-Achilles combination, and he survived one of the ganks, if memory serves right. So, even though you're counterpicking Aquarius and Jeff Villa, I'm still kind of leaning towards the comfort that SSG is having with their picks.
Athena, Odin, and Cucullin on the same team, so I think we'll see Homie Effie on the Odin. We'll certainly see which direction that one goes in. Maybe a Cucullin jungle. I don't really see him playing the Athena jungle.
Definitely not his traditional style, but it wouldn't be unheard of to kind of switch things up. It's still very early in the summer split. It's only week number 1 still. The final day, but still plenty of time to experiment.
Jingwei and Fenrir will be chosen here for Space Station Gaming. So when you look at Chang'e and Fenrir, both of these characters can go into the jungle or the short lane, but knowing Andanster, I expect to see the Fenrir more so than knowing Andy and Aqua, I expect to see Chang'e in the short, Fenrir in the jungle. Poseidon will be the last pick for CLG. I love Poseidon against the Fenrir specifically. I think it's a very nice choice here. Are we seeing 3 games today?
The double sustain from SSG? No.
Well, they won it with the double sustain in game number 1. Will it happen in game number 2? That's the question I ask the casters.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Toli. Going into game 2 here between CLG and Space Station. Double healers again, but a little different this time. The Chang'e and the Sylvanas.
And it's hard to call because I really want to believe that this is a Chang'e and the solo lane for Aquarius because that's what we've seen before.
Right.
But I'm not completely sold that this isn't going to be like... I still think it's within the realm of possibilities that it could possibly be a Chang'e jungle Fenrir solo.
Let's do it. Chang'e jungle Fenrir solo. I'd love to see that one, huh? Would you? But who do you all think will win there in Mixer Chat? Go ahead and vote for us now. Chang'e jungle, I mean, what is it that you're looking for out of the Chang'e jungle? Is it just the big ultimate for initiations or just like more healing for everybody? Or
I can't say that I've never seen Andy play the Chang'e jungle because it's definitely something that we've seen happen in the past, especially during that brief time period in North America where DJ Pernicus encouraged everybody to bring forth
that's true.
Chang'e jungle. Thank you, DJ, for that one. That was a great experience.
Everyone's
for
games were better,
games.
yes. After that, DJ Pernicus getting that impact for him. But yeah, we'll see where that ends up going. More than likely, it'll probably be the Fenrir that we're seeing go over to Andanster. But it sounds like game 1 is ready to get started, so we can speculate no longer. We can just see exactly where it is, and it's going to be Aquarius playing the Chang'e.
Damn, I was really hoping that it might have been a Chang'e jungle just for old time's sake, but Aquarius into the Odin matchup, I can't call this a hard counter, which is why I think Fine OK is actually taking the Cucullin into the solo lane as opposed to the Odin. Plus, Odin will have a much better likelihood of actually being able to pinpoint the healers, aka Jeff Hinla and Baskin, during the early stages, because we saw some successful picks in the last game in the early phases, but CLG just unable to keep that one going. I think this is their statement against Space Station to finally truly deal with the double healer.
And it should be very effective here. Baskin, Jeff, Hinla, Aquarius all struggle mightily with the Odin Cage, so Homie should be able to have a pretty good impact on it. Sounds like that did not particularly sway Mixture Chat, though, who still voted 86% for Space.
I don't even know why we run a poll for who will win.
If it's Jeff and Barra.
If it's Jeff and Barra, if it's Barracuda, you will not win a poll against Barracuda. It's factually impossible.
And we're seeing it happen here in the results. CLG being kind of discounted here, but I mean, to be fair, Space Station also been playing very, very well, but I think it's hard to beat out that Jeff Barra impact. Now, I believe we did see Baskin just go for the invade on the red buff, and it was successful. You see Barracuda has a red buff of his own, so that's a bit of a win for the Space Station boys, as Baskin might be in trouble yet again. Evade and Punish is available. Beads to get him away. What a long distance he covered, and Baskin's fine.
The CLG have just got a thing for 4-man rotations onto Baskin. It worked out at 7 minutes, so let's try fast forwarding that to 1.5.
Well, I told you, 4 is just not enough, man. Now for Baskin as he makes it away. You got to bring everybody over. Anister tries to jump onto Homie, but there's really just nothing there, and he just retreats.
Pulling the Purification Beads still really important, though, because of the fact that they are level 3. Well, actually, take that one back, because it's only Baskin who's level 3, as Jigs will use his own Purification Beads to stay alive, because that is an Athena support, guys, with beats.
I think that might be Finner making that happen there, Taco. I mean, how about you? Ragnarok is very strong, and I think Jigs would get picked up almost every time.
It's perfect, because if Jigs were to look for the dash taunt, Andy would just ult and pick him up, and then we see a dead Jigs, but Beats usually prevents that.
Yeah, so that's probably why we're seeing this adjustment being made here by Jigs to try and avoid getting controlled by Anninster on this Finner. And we talked a little bit about what Homie is going to be able to do on this Odin and how strong the matchup here is in the Space Station. But why Anninster taking this turn towards the Finner? I mean, what's he looking for with this one?
A lot of the gods from CLG's composition don't have CC immune ultimates. You're really looking at Fine OK and Snoopy, but actually hold that thought, because Jigs could be in a lot of trouble here. Trying to dash away now, will be able to find an opening through their own jungle corridor. And what I mean by that is that it's not consistent CC immunity on the ultimates. So CLG, it's either you pick up beads or you get Ragnaroked off cooldown.
Yeah.
I think this is also just a nice response towards Homie FA. And they're just looking for Andy to play fetch for Baskin.
And that looks like that is going to be the call here. Anninster going to be able to cause problems for just about everyone on CLG if they can get the Finner. But Finner is another one of these gods who it really feels like kind of has to, get off to a good start. If he's able to get punished while he's in the Ragnarok form or while he's brutalizing, then there can be struggles for the Finner. But if he can, go in, get those pulls off and bring them back, he can feel like there's no answer sometimes.
Something only time will tell.
Sure.
Pretty much. Anytime you're running the Fenrir jungle, I do feel as though this is one of those games Space Station are probably aiming to close out a little bit sooner, but just in case, they've got Baskin and Aquarius on a couple of late game mages that I think could be the turnaround factor for Space Station should this match go on a little bit longer than what they'd like it to.
And I like the way that we're seeing this adjustment because, Aquarius had a really good LAN on Warriors. He was playing really well, like up against Benji, up against some of the solo laners in Europe, looking like just as good as they were. And it's been a really kind of breakout season here for Aquarius, showing some of the performance that we've always heard from some of the other pros. To make the adjustment now over to playing some of these sustaining mages when the meta calls for it, that's part of why Aquarius is such a strong fit for this team. He can do a lot.
Just a flexible player, and having the ability to swap around your variety of picks is always a huge benefit to any
Baskin
team
zoning
environment.
here?
Yes, he can, because Hurrywin's still not 5. He's level 4 to Baskin 6 because of all the farm that Hurrywin was splitting early on, since CLG were trying to make 4-man ganks happen.
That is pretty annoying if you're getting zoned away. Actually, ultimate dropped on the Fine OK because Anninster's here. Uses the ultimate to avoid getting pulled by Ragnarok, but Brutalize, I think, will just be too much. Aquarius is able to find first blood for Space Station Gaming. Fine OK gonna have to take a seat.
I'm not 100% certain, but I think that Andy just brutalized a creep.
Instead of grabbing him all to try and bring in Fine OK. Snoopy a little bit of trouble over here in the dual lane as well. Barracuda able to force Snoopy up into the ultimate with his own airstrike. And Snoopy going to stick it around anyway, even at low HP. Does still have the beads, but not going to have the safety of the mounted archer.
Not the position that Final K wants to be in, though. Giving that first blood to Aquarius, who already probably doesn't have to back nearly as often because of that Jade Rabbit. So sitting at level 7 now to Final K 6. I think that Aquarius is more than happy to have picked up that first blood bounty.
No, that's going to help him out a lot. And I wanted to talk about this last game, but there was so much early action on Aquarius that we didn't really have a chance. He kind of went this same build path where he went into the breastplate, but then started building the Lotus Crown and kind of moved between. I thought it might have been just because he was being sent back so often, but this time on the Chang'e, it's showing he's definitely building this way deliberately to try and make his build more efficient.
I think it is very efficient, though, because you still get some of the physical protections, and that's all that you're looking for, at least for the direct level 1 through 4 stage.
Right.
Having the Warrior's Blessing plus that T1 of the breastplate is going to be beneficial. But Baskin now getting stuck inside of this cage. He should end up falling here, and sure enough, that'll be the case as Jeff Hinley gets cracking by Hurryone on the back end.
He didn't even need to use it on Baskin. He'd already been deleted, so just turned it towards the tree. I thought they liked water, but it was a little bit too much there for Jeff Hinla. Annister is going to rotate back in. Final K. And the rest of the CLG squad just going to retreat. That's a clean pick onto Baskin, who's been a target for CLG early on in both these games.
That was a great punish by CLG, because Baskin dashes in, not really thinking too much about it, and then suddenly there's 4 people there.
That's been the name of the game, hasn't it? And the Odin Cage, so good at punishing Thoth, even when he has the evade and punish available. So especially when he doesn't, that's just kind of clean for the rest of CLG, especially Defender of Olympus from Jigs for extra damage, and they're able to punish early.
Fine, okay. Eating quite a lot of poke out of this Chang'e, and those are the sort of little plays that you want to see CLG continuously make throughout this match, because shutting down Baskin that quickly, I think that it's clear they have more than enough burst damage to follow up inside of the Odin ring, which I really like about CLG's composition here, because normally that tends to be an inconsistency factor that we see with a lot of teams, where they'll pick up the Odin because it's a nice pick for 1 or 2 guys, and then they don't really have anything that they can do with it after the fact.
Well, now problems for Aquarius, not going to be able to really heal inside the cage, and Final K able to take that kill pretty easily. A good gank by Homie onto Aquarius in the solo lane, and not really much Anderson can do to try and help out. He just comes over and confirms some of the jungle.
Andy, probably still going to be looking to drop that blue buff, I'd imagine, just so Final K doesn't get it for free, but Jeff forced into the ultimate. I think that is a smart call there from the Sylvanas. Otherwise, he gets taunted into an almost certain death, I should say.
Just good from CLG to be able to force that out, because really not any other way for Jeff Hinley to get that CC immunity except for the Wrath of Terra, and he's able to stay away from the taunt and survive. As again, Homie coming over to put some pressure onto Aquarius here in the soul lane. Going to realize the blue has already been dropped, but is going to kind of lurk here in the jungle. He does not have the cage available this time, but they should still be able to do plenty of work.
All that Aquarius wants to do is make it back underneath his tower. He knows that they don't have as much of a kill opportunity here, since he just ended up dying in the exact same wave. Still, it means that Aquarius will not be able to shove his way into his own jungle.
And there's a couple of ways you can respond when you're seeing that the other team wants to put a lot of pressure onto one spot, right? You can either try and rotate and be there to respond to the pressure, or go somewhere else on the map and try to execute some pressure of your own. Which kind of way would you rather see Space Station respond here? Do they need to come help Aquarius more, as we might be getting our answer? Annister jumps on top of Final K. Defender of Olympus being channeled, bringing that damage over for them. 2-man taunt means that Final K can put a little bit of damage of his own in, and Annister has been brought pretty low.
Space Station need to be careful here and not get baited in by Final K and Jigs. Homie FA was right around the corner, but didn't choose to show face. He does have the blink available. I don't think he would have been able to catch up in time.
Not able to find any punish on the gank from Annister, but that was kind of the answer to the question, right? What's the call going to be from Space Station to respond? And the response was Annister to try and come gank Final K yet again, and this time they're not able to get the kill. Jigs was quick on the Defender of Olympus this time to help mitigate some damage, and it wasn't enough burst.
But if you'll notice, it's actually Space Station who are in the lead in terms of gold and farm. I'm
Sure.
a little bit surprised, honestly, Finch, because you would expect this to be the other way around, even though it's minimal enough to where it's not going to mean the end of CLG by any means. It's still just impressive that Space Station, despite how strong CLG have looked throughout this laning phase, they're still hanging on.
No, that's good. It shows that Space Station's been able to find, just a little bit more farm in the jungle, been able to get a few more creeps here and there, even in response to a 2 kills from CLG. They're only up really 1 kill in the kill column, so it's not as if CLG have been running away with it or anything, but I get what you mean. When you're going up against these healer compositions, you kind of feel like we got to get it done early, so it's a little disheartening when even early on they have even a small lead.
Not a whole lot happening just yet. FineOK has been proxying for a while here, and that's just what you'd expect to happen between a Kakolin and Chang'e. Both of these solo laners kind of just accepting the fact that they can't really individually kill the other. Speaking of which, the homie FA could very well end up dying here. He's going to just barely hang on.
And he's going to be able to survive down to Anderson, who's in trouble. Kraken came through, but Andy lives with what must be 5 HP. Same for homie Faye, who was able to survive with a little bit of help. Looks like he got a little bit of extra health from that shield, and he's just barely out of there.
3 ults for the price of 1, though. I think that that's a trade that's still mildly in favor of Space Station. Excuse me, price of 2.
Yeah, they have to commit the Ragnarok and the Final Judgment there, but still not able to get it done. It's a little hard to take down this Odin here early on, and Jigs did put the Defender of Olympus in to try and help mitigate some of that damage, which made a difference for him because there was barely any HP for homie in response. But I did want to talk about the build path Anderson is elected to go. I think that's the Masamune he's already gone with early on in the build. There's so many strong items for Assassins early on, but it really looks like he's trying to go with more of the bruisery kind of route where he early on wants to be able to survive some extra damage.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Andy just fully devote to Ankile in the second item. That's to help stop any of the taunt follow-ups of Athena dashes. Also, if he wants the heavy commit onto Hurrywin, it's going to be very difficult for Hurrywin to stay alive without the help of other members from CLG here. So I like this decision from Andy. He knows that Fenrir doesn't have the greatest late-game capabilities, and with 2 late-game mages on your team, you might as well put yourself in a position to set them up as best as possible.
There's the ward here, so CLG know the Gold Fury is going down. It's at half health, and CLG are making the rotation. Homie, Jigs, and Snoopy are all here. But remember, Space Station were able to grab an early Gold Fury last game as well. Well, CLG can't allow them to get that same kind of early objective advantage.
I don't think Space Station knew that Hurrywin wasn't nearby. I think they were expecting him to be around the wall. Speaking of which, homie FA, he lived the first time around, but he won't survive the second as he gets eaten up by Baskin's Final Judgment.
Yeah, this time Jigs was controlled and couldn't provide a Defender of Olympus to try and help, as FineOK is able to trade pretty well with Anderson on the right-hand side, but Space Station want to come right back towards the Gold Fury yet again. FineOK, Hurrywin, Snoopy are all here. Hurrywin, though, does not have the Kraken for that big-time confirm here on top of the objective, as Jigs return to Defender of Olympus.
Space Station doing what they can to play around Aquarius' heals, and Oracles seem to be their next shift of attention, but nice whirlpool out of her and going to ensure that those get split 1 for 1, meaning the Sentry Ward is the only real guaranteed vision Space Station have on that Gold Fury for the moment.
Even with the pick on the homie, though, Space Station were not able to get the Gold Fury there, Taco. CLG held on just enough to force them off. FineOK is still too big for all of them to try and fight up against him on this Kakulin right now, especially when he was in that rage form and the threat of homie coming in with the cage. It seemed like Space Station weren't ready to all in.
This is starting to pose a lot of similarities to the last match, though, and
yeah,
I think that that's even more concerning than ever before, as Annenser will be able to confirm the buff, but maybe not so much his life. He's still trying to survive inside of that Odin cage, but FineOK gonna make sure to collect him, and now they're all eyes on Aquarius.
Just not able to keep him alive inside the cage. A good way to dodge some of that damage from Aquarius, but they're gonna continue to chase him in the tier 1 tower. That's 2 quick kills from CLG. Oh, but the tower! That chunked Aquarius gets credit for the return kill courtesy of the tier 2 tower.
A little bit too much.
Yeah.
So at least Space Station gets something for their troubles. CLG, though, still not certain that's worth it. Because of the fact that homie dies there, I don't think that it's worth it. He doesn't get to farm any more so than what Andy would have been doing, and I think it just ends up being completely even.
Taunt does not quite land onto Barracuda, but they all end onto Aquarius and Annister. Clearly the 2v2 going in favor of CLG right now. Space Station would much rather have the big team fight rather than those small isolated fights in the jungle. Gold Fury looked like it was being tossed around by CLG for a moment, but they want to wait on it. They're not trying to force the objective just yet. Now last game, Space Station have the Aphrodite and the Guan Yu. Very clearly, the late game is going to be in their favor. With the Chang'e Sylvanas, I mean, is it still that big of a gap? They're not as potent of healers as the Guan Yu Aphrodite.
It depends on if Jeff actually decides to opt for the Lotus Crown or not. I think if Jeff builds into a Lotus Crown, it's still going to be just as problematic for CLG as it was in the last game, but if he doesn't, and if he builds purely defensive, then that's going to put a little bit more pressure onto Aquarius to be the sole healer capability. But he's already got a Lotus Crown online.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be too surprised to see him even opt for the Rod of Asclepius next.
That's right. Increases the healing for everyone around, and also provides a bunch of movement speed. All stuff Chang'e really wants from that Rod of Asclepius. And already has plenty of cooldown between the cooldown boots and the Breastplate of Valor. So Chang'e going to be providing plenty of heals, and they're going to be rather potent to go along with Jeff Hindley here on the Sylvanas, depending on where he wants to go. Already has the Gauntlet of Thebes going, but nothing else really to synergize with the sustain parts just yet.
It's actually a bit concerning, though, because, I don't know, something about seeing double healer compositions, you always just get that, like, lurking feeling. As you ever get that feeling that somebody's watching you?
Sure.
You know, and like makes you feel like unsafe. That's kind of how CLG probably feel right now in this game. Like they don't feel very safe in a lot of their team fights, and I think that's why they've been looking for picks more so than actual full engagements.
Anister jumps over the wall, so he is going to be okay. It sort of reminds me of when you go out to like go hang out with your friends, but you didn't do your homework, and that's sort of like lingering in the back of your head, like, did we really handle everything we were supposed to handle? And it kind of, when you start getting to the late game, and now you're like a few minutes from class, you're like, man, we did not do that homework. We did not put these healers far enough behind, and now we're just inherently behind because of how healers work in team fights. It's just that nagging feeling of you didn't quite do enough, and now you might be paying for it here in the team fights.
Not every day you get to see a Jing Wei successfully zone out the Hachi men here.
That's fair.
Snoopy still wanting to look for more. Barracuda knows that Harmy FA is up there, though. They do have a ward just at a slightly earlier choke point, which is why the sentry from CLG hasn't been able to spot it out.
We're 17 and a half minutes into this one, Taco, and Space Station still have that same 1,000 gold lead. Look, it's been that way since like the 4.5 minute mark. Experience has been very much fluctuating between 2,000 and 1,000 as well. So CLG have not really done much to put pressure onto this Space Station draft at all. And I have to imagine they're comfortable playing at this leisurely pace right now.
It's just so difficult to put pressure anywhere outside of the solo lane. And Aquarius is really only punishable for probably the first 10 levels. After that, have fun trying to chase down a Chang'e and kill her without investing way too many people over to one side of the map.
Now, Homie is on back Harvey, so this will be a 2v1 on Final K. Ultimate comes out. Defender of Olympus trying to even things up, but that call did not come out very soon. Final K is already low. He's going to be able to dash away, and the taunt from Jigs creates enough space. Final K will live, but they force the Defender of Olympus from Jigs.
I like the patience there. And even better still, Andy holding onto using everything for so long. Speaking of which, Baskin could be in a lot of trouble here. He's going to be able to juke out the Kraken, looking to return fire onto Hurrywin, gets the Aegis, and helps Andenster to find the kill.
Wow, you really can't ask Baskin to do more than that in the two-man gang. Now Andenster going in aggressive, evading punish, lands onto Jigs, and they do have a little bit more backup here too as Homie Faye is forced to jump away. A big 5-man grouping from Space Station here in the jungle, but Baskin living through the two-man gank, Aegising out the damage from Homie, dodging away from the Kraken from Hurrywin, perfectly played.
There's going to be a free T1 tower for Space Station to collect as they head on over towards the Gold Fury. With Aquarius having rotated, he's accepted the fate of his own T1 in solo, but that won't matter if they're able to secure this Gold Fury.
And CLG are not going to contest this. Snoopy's nearby, so he might try and come in and throw a Heavenly Banner, but not even that much. Space Station earned this Gold Fury by being able to survive the gank in mid, as well as putting pressure on Jigs to use the Defender of Olympus earlier in solo, and now that Gold Fury is all theirs.
That player knowledge from Baskin is beyond impressive, though. That's a play that I think only Baskin or another really skilled SPL player could have possibly made, because everybody else just panics in that instance, probably drops the Purification Beads to get out of the Whirlpool cripple with the both dash, and then ends up dying because they don't have those beats later on for the other forms of CC. Speaking of which, Jeff Hinla gonna have to ult in order to get away from the likes of CLG, and they're just pulling the Fire Giant.
Oh, wow. Maybe they thought Space Station were going to back off of that, but Pyromancer, Gold Fury all go to Space Station, and they're still relatively healthy. CLG now pulling this Fire Giant. They have it down to about 75% HP. Taunt goes on to Jeff. Kraken comes in as well, and Jeff Hinla does fall, but they commit quite a bit, and Final Judgment comes ripping through the team fight, setting up Barracuda to take down homie F-Bay. Now comes in Anister, trying to find a little bit more damage of his own. Barracuda has to use Aegis, but Final K being delivered on a silver platter to the rest of Space Station Gaming, and that's all they need to take him down. Baskin has the damage.
Sure, you kill the tree, but at what cost to the rest of your team? CLG, I think, just a heavy overcommit, getting punished to the fullest extent by Space Station. That's what has to happen too. Space Station have to make sure that they return fire, because almost all of the cooldowns that CLG would have wanted for a more ideal candidate like Baskin just gets dropped onto the tree instead.
It really feels like CLG forced that fight because they knew that they'd sort of let Space Station get away with too much, and they commit all in on the Jeff Hinla. They force the Wrath of Terror first, then they come back in, commit everything, and as you mentioned, they get blown right up. Baskin positioning perfectly throughout the fight, Anister dragging Final K back to his doom. CLG, it feels like, even though it's not that big of a lead, they have let Space Station get to the point where their team fight's incredibly strong.
I think that they just have to use the Odin cage a lot better. Right now, it seems as though homie FA has kind of been dropping that ring really early on into these fights. I'd like to see him hold onto it for a little bit longer and then wait until Baskin has dashed before choosing to go in. It's just an advantage that we have from being able to see it.
That's true. It helps to be able to see everything from front, plan it out. As a three-man taunt comes out from Jigs, but the response is that they almost blow him up. He just barely survives. Cage comes out, but Phantom in response means they can retreat. Snoopy gets poked very low and has to jump away. But this is, again, where Space Station are going to have the advantage. They can group up, get those wisps, get the healing from Aquarius, and now they're the ones sieging the Fire Giant. Final K and homie are nearby, but Space Station are perfectly comfortable to take this fight.
And that's exactly why they do it. Homie FA gonna get pulled in off of that stun from the Fenrir, and they're still looking for more.
But Defender of Olympus means that they can bring back in strong numbers CLG, and Aquarius is going to be the target. They want to get rid of this Chang'e early on. Whirlpool lands, Cursed Ankh is on them as well, but they're able to survive and regroup and heal back up. Space Station are so resilient.
That was the window of opportunity for CLG. That was the fight that they need to make happen. Speaking of which, Baskin's still looking for more on the top end, almost ends up taking out Jigs. It was caught in that lazy back.
Just not quite enough damage, and yet again, the Fire Giant being pulled by Space Station. Final K, though, is on the loop around to the backside while Anister jumps in for the two-man stun. Final K has Barracuda and Basket, but they just turn around and start looking for the burn. Evade and punish does land, and the rest of the damage coming out as well with the Hieroglyphic Assault. Anister has to leave on the right-hand side, and Final Judgment just barely off the mark. Ooh. But Basket hits it anyway. What? He's nuts! Final K ends up falling, and the rest of Space Station can restore and heal. Now they pull in homie Faye, who's happy to drop the cage. Big Kraken comes out from Hurwin, and Barracuda has already been taken out as well.
Baskin has no mana left, however, and he's got to be on the retreat. Jeff Hinla could very likely is going to end up falling here. Beautiful route, though, to keep Jigs preoccupied, and Baskin finding just enough mana. But Jakku's coming. It's Anister. He's made his return, and he could find a huge cleanup here if CLG don't get out.
That's right. Anister's full health has Ragnarok to pull Jigs back in to the damage, and it shouldn't be hard for Baskin and Aquarius to get this done. They were able to find Jigs without too much trouble. CLG have a good fight, but it's still not enough. They get 2 picks, but Space Station respond with 2 of their own.
And he died so early on in that fight, and yet he's able to come back in no problem because of how long Space Station forces you to stay and contest with them. Their healing and sustain has time and time again proven to be super problematic for CLG in that they aren't able to fully close out an engagement.
And that's the problem. You saw it in the damage numbers, right? They're only about 1,000 damage that separates them in that team fight, about 1,500 or so. But Space Station are going to be healing up throughout all of that. So really, you can bring that CLG number down even more in terms of how much of that is effectively hurting Space Station.
I'd say you could probably hard half it. Like,
yeah.
If we see CLG doing 9,000 damage, that means 4,500 of it is actually relevant. The other 4,500 is being negated between Wisp and the sustain heals of Aquarius.
And Aquarius has 11,000 healing. I was saying it might not be as potent as Aphrodite, but he's putting out very similar numbers as Gold Fury gets pulled now by Space Station, and it's down below half HP. CLG are here in full force, though, have all their ultimates, so they're certainly ready to defend. Wrap the Terra lands onto Jigs. Anister jumps in for the stun, and Aquarius throws in his own ultimate, but there's not really any follow-up. They kind of just force CLG back.
They're just trying to see what they can get out of Jigs. Non-stop pulling it down to 50% health, but the Gold Fury, both sides this time around have very strong objective secures, hurrying with the Kraken and basking with the final judgment, meaning that neither side, I think, is really going to want to hard commit here unless they find the kills first.
CLG are trying to force Space Station into this fight. The slow poke war is always going to favor Space Station. CLG would rather have a big fight all at once where they can try and delete somebody quickly, but Space Station are not going to give them that room, Taco. There's just no way. Final K jumps in aggressively, but just takes a bunch of poke in return and has to back up.
Speaking of which, though, the dash has been forced out by Baskin. He's sitting at about half mana. So he's been spamming, but it's been at a cost. And Barracuda and CERN still looking to stand strong as Jeff Hinla.
He goes right into the Kraken, but it's on to Jeff Hinla. So that's not the target they want. Baskin finds the target they want, though, with the ultimate on the Jigs. Double kill now for the mid laner for Space Station Gaming. That's going to force CLG to flee in every direction. Space Station don't even want the Gold Fury anymore. They're going to try and chase down Homie Faye here in mid.
And they might be able to find it. This damage from Baskin is just chunking away non-stop. Homie Faye gonna blink over the wall, looking to contest his own speed buff, but that's just a wasted cooldown in a sense. I don't even think he used anything when he blinked over.
He just kind of came over there. I don't know what that was all about. It's very brave. I thought he might have been in danger, but in the end, he does survive. CLG are going to grab the Gold Fury in response to the Fire Giant that is going down to Space Station, but that was the fight that they wanted. Kraken Whirlpool were used on really the two tankiest targets for Space Station, and they weren't able to find enough there. Jeff Hinla kind of shrugs it off, and from then on, it was Space Station's fight.
I'm more surprised that Andy didn't pick up the speed buff after taking it.
Sure, on the Finner. It looked like he dropped it, yes. I don't know why he didn't grab it. I guess he wanted to come back to the Fire Giant. I don't know.
Just helping support his team a little bit further, but...
Now, Homie does have Relic Dagger, so he can use Blink to get over the wall and have it up sooner than normal because he has Relic Dagger. So he can make that Blink.
I think that's also just a smart pickup for an Odin, specifically for the Odin. I think there are some junglers where the case can be argued that Relic Dagger has very strong viability, and this is definitely one of those circumstances because you want that cage as often as possible, and you want to make sure that your cooldowns can match it.
Right. I'm being a little bit facetious about the Blink over the wall, but certainly it adds up with Homie Faye wanting to be that sort of other initiation.
Yeah, it takes it down to 90.
Right, yeah. So instead of having Jigs, always the dash taunt is the way they initiate. They can also have Homie blink in with the cage if they want to. It gives them some options about how they want to respond to Space Station.
I'll be honest though, Finch, even with that in mind, I'm not sure that the Odin cage is having any sort of impact like what CLG were probably hoping for. I think that for the first 15 minutes, we saw some promise, and then after that, it's just been too much.
Jigs goes in, does find a 3-man taunt into the Kraken. Barracuda takes a little bit of damage, but it's nowhere near enough. These ultimates from Hurricane have not been finding the damage that they really need at this point in the game, and that's with Soul Reaver in the build as well.
At the very least, he was able to find or force Barracuda's purification beads, and so he won't have those on the next couple of objective sieges, which means it's going to be on CLG, probably Jigs, to find a promising taunt that the rest of the members can then look to spam their damage out on. But as far as big burst damage, I think the Kraken's really all they've got going for them.
And Jigs has done a good job with those taunts so far, like forcing multiple responses as Snoopy gets hit with a proc right to the face, courtesy of Baskin. Tier 2 tower in duo and in mid have both fallen, and now Space Station are ready to make the siege happen on mid. Anderson's going to go in first. Jeff Hinla gets the pull on the Jigs, who's been a good target. Wrath the Terror comes through, but he does not get knocked up. Now Anister is going to find a target to pull, but Final K is CC immediately.
Snoopy was stunned for the entirety of all of that. His homie Efe finds a beautiful cage, but it's going to get phantomed out, so might as well have never even happened.
They're not able to cage often enough to get in between these phantom cooldowns either. Those are almost always there now in response, and Mid Phoenix is going to go down for Space Station Gaming. They've played this so methodically, Taco, and really just kind of slowly willed away at CLG till they're ready to fight.
I got so excited thinking something crazy was about to happen because you see a 5-man Odin ring and you can usually expect
That's supposed to be good.
devastation. Yes, and then it's like, oh, by the way, we still have our Phantom guys.
Just not going to be enough as they have the Phantoms there on time to get them out. It's just not been enough to force them out from Space Station and find the opportunities for CLG. And even when they do, even when Jigs does find the taunt onto both Jeff Hinla and Barracuda, or Jeff Hinla and Baskin, so that he can't peel for them, they don't have the big follow-up afterwards. Snoopy has good damage, but it really hasn't been hitting home. The Kraken has done some work, but it hasn't been deleting people. It just has not been quite enough from CLG.
Space Station are just fully abusing their double healer composition, and you wouldn't expect it from Sylvanas Chang'e. That would be the priority here. I mean, Chang'e is a pretty risk versus reward sort of pickup, but
Oh, yeah.
I think in this situation, because of the fact that it's on a
This is
Chang'e.
important though. They've got Aquarius isolated on the solo lane, trapped him inside the cage, drops the ultimate, but it's not enough. Snoopy gets the last hit, but the rest of Space Station, they're not sure where to go with this. Aquarius can't afford to get caught all alone like that.
I'm a little bit surprised that he did, but who really expects a 5-man grouping in that deep into the solo lane when you still have a Phoenix at half health?
At that point, CLG was just kind of lurking, looking for something, and they found it. Aquarius going to take a seat. And now the Fire Giant will be up in about 20 seconds, which means there'll be about 12 seconds before Aquarius spawns. Then you got to give time for him to make it there, or maybe really not. He has the teleport, so as soon as Aquarius spawns, he can teleport in and be a part of the fight. Only a 10-second window. Can CLG capitalize on that?
I think that kill is also a perfect example of SPL level play, because normally if a team were to be this far behind, as CLG currently is a Space Station, I think a lot of people would just let it go. But CLG is still looking for any and every possible option to try and fight their way back into this one.
They do a good job punishing as Homie comes in, drops the cage down on the Baskin. Aegis doesn't immune enough. Whirlwind is able to take down Baskin from Space Station Gaming. They rely so much on his damage. Anister does pick up Fino K, and Aquarius comes in with a big ultimate of his own. Barracuda follows up and takes Fino K down. Now it's a 4v4 as Aquarius has joined the fray. Jigs getting big crits coming out from Barracuda, and Whirlwind's now the one in trouble. One more shot would get it done, but the Whirlpool slows him down. Not enough. Anister takes down Whirlwind as well.
You would expect that to be such a promising fight for CLG. I mean, they take out Aquarius, they find a pick onto Baskin immediately after. But the damage is just so overwhelming. Aquarius's ultimate, too, is perfectly placed. That
Yes.
stun just lasting for so long.
But it also takes so much to kill anyone on this squad, right? Like, they had to go so all in. Aquarius, they had a 5-man collapse on him in solo. Baskin, even through the Aegis, they finally burst him down. And afterwards, Space Station Gaming, and yes, Aquarius hits an excellent ultimate to help out in that team fight, but it's just too much to try and burst through this Space Station comp.
Sparks of life, though, from CLG. Means down, but not entirely out of it just yet. I think that if they're able to keep that chain of deaths happening for Space Station, then CLG could possibly be able to recapture a lot of the lanes, or at least knock down some of these towers. As it currently stands, though, with 5 towers still on the map for CLG to take care of, Space Station have a huge margin of error, and that being they can probably afford to wipe a couple of times even before really needing to be concerned about throwing this one.
And we haven't given enough credit yet to just how far behind really CLG are. It's like a 15,000 gold lead. I mean, if you take a look at their builds, they're still not 6 slotted here at 34 minutes in. Mage's Blessing still for Whirlwind, Hunter's Blessing still for Snoopy, as opposed to Space Station, who are essentially all full slot at this point. So even when CLG do get the good fights that they want, that they want, and that are hard to come by, they're not able to punish as hard.
And keep in mind, Barracuda hasn't built a single crit item yet. All of those crits that you're seeing are happening because of the explosive bolts, and
That's right.
It's a high enough crit chance that you almost feel like it shouldn't be every single one, but it definitely happens from time to time, and Jake certainly felt the repercussions of it.
Yeah, sometimes you got the Barracuda touch, man, and they're able to make it happen. It seems like Barracuda was when he went up against Jigs. 5-on-5 now in the mid-Phoenix. Relics should all be available for this push as Space Station are ready to group in. Hurlwind has been a big focal for the CLG defense. Can he find the big-time Kraken to slow them down?
I feel like this is too much, though, resting upon Hurlwind's shoulders. There's only so much that a lone Poseidon can do. It's just that, where's the setup?
Well, now comes the Odin cage. He goes for the Kraken, but it's delayed because of a good stun from Anister, and so the rest of Space Station shrug it off. Perfect play. He shuts down Hurlwind. Now Space Station can take down the weakened mid-Phoenix and regroup yet again. Hurlwind had a half second to get it, but he gets stunned out.
That just looked like it felt awful to be in Hurlwind's position.
I could hear him clicking. I could hear him trying to cast the Kraken. And he couldn't do it, man. That's so rough. Aquarius and Anister working together perfectly disrupt CLG in that fight.
That was a really nicely well-timed counter initiation by Space Station, and those are the plays that they have to make if they don't want everybody to eat Hurlwind's Kraken straight to the dome. And Hurlwind should be respawned, I believe, by the time Space Station are really looking to siege this last and final Phoenix for CLG. If all three lanes are having to be concerned with fire minions, I think that it might end up overpowering CLG.
Snoopy's going to be the target. Snoopy gets taken down. Jigs goes in for the taunt, but another big stun from Aquarius sets up the rest of Space Station Gaming. Double kill now for Barracuda. Fine, okay, forced to jump away, but the airstrike means Barracuda's not done chasing just yet. Phoenix on the right-hand side gets shredded. No Phoenix is standing, only the Titan. Only 3 members to defend up against the full onslaught of Space Station, and I think they grabbed this one 2-0, Taco.
Barracuda's focusing purely onto the Titan, doesn't really want to be concerned about all of his teammates and the calamity surrounding him. And sure enough, Space Station topple CLG with a clean 2-0 victory to boot.
And they continue to look very difficult to beat to the Space Station roster. They play so cleanly as a unit. I mean, in Aquarius in top form on the Aphrodite and the Chang'e, both games played lights out.
These double healers are just devastating right now. It doesn't seem as though CLG had an appropriate response, and even when there were promising moments to be had for the team, overall, Space Station in the end just simply proving that healers are going to win.
A healer's gonna heal. I mean, they eventually they're just gonna get it done,
They
right?
needed more bursts. All they really had to rely on was the Kraken, and it works out during the laning phases because, again, I just feel like CLG just keep getting trap carded into going for team comps that rely purely on picks, but you can't afford to do that against double healers.
In this competition, they couldn't find enough bursts to get it done all at once there in that fight, Taco, but who do you all think was the MVP from Space Station? I certainly wouldn't blame you from voting for Aquarius, but there was great plays by Jeff Himla, sometimes to keep him alive. Good setup he was doing for the team. Anister on the Fenrir was constantly bringing back targets for the rest of the team to kill.
I think it's fair to give it to Aquarius.
Sure.
I would say or Baskin, but I don't want to say or Baskin for anything because then Baskin indefinitely wins.
Yeah, you always, anytime we put that out there, there's going to vote for him. His player damage was nuts that game too, so plenty of good choices. But we'll go ahead and get over to the desk. Tell us what happened there in that game.
Well, what happened there in that game? Space Station takes it again. Totally, what a performance.
It was amazing performance by Baskin. If he's not MVP, I'll be surprised. The long-range Thoth never let Space Station down. That's why they prioritized it in the first pick. And CLG knew what they were getting themselves into by letting it go. They get the Athena yet again for Jigs to try to follow up with initiations, but it just wasn't enough because the way Jeff Hinlow was playing Sylvanas, those defensive Wrath of Terrors, just too good to be able to pick him off quickly enough, and he was baiting himself out long enough for the rest of his team to clean up.
Domination by Space Station. Not a single tower taken by Counterlogic Gaming. Just completely oppressive play by the astronauts. Really enjoyed watching Space Station step up. They had problems at LAN, Anatoly. Big picture here. Did what you see today reflect? Do you think that what you saw today was a reflection of Space Station Gaming more so than their LAN performance, or less so?
I think that they've evolved beyond their LAN performance because they were doing double Hunter back then. Now they're switching things up to go for more sustained composition, keep Baskin at bay with his traditional mage position, allow him the long range freedom that he needs on the Thoth. He was just fantastic in both games, honestly. And this is the evolution of Space Station, beating E United earlier on this week, beating also CLG 2-0. still the dominant North American team we expect them to be.
A big part of that dominance remains in the middle lane. Baskin is your most valuable player, and what a surprise it was, he says in his most unsurprised voice. Baskin on the Thoth has been a force to be reckoned with since he entered the middle lane and just continues to do so.
He's a madman, the way he gets the setup, or whether or not he doesn't get set up. He was able to chase down Homiefe at one point when the Fire Giant was kind of getting leashed back and forth, and like that, he misses one kill, but he gets another. Jigs was always on the receiving end, unfortunately, and that was a great team fight for Space Station Gaming to really run away